Imagine traveling across the Atlantic from New York to London in just under 3 hours, flying higher than any other passenger aircraft and as fast as military jet fighters. The Concorde was not the stuff of imagination, but rather a supersonic passenger airliner. Introduced to revenue service on January 21, 1976, it was retired after 27 years on October 24, 2003. Cruising beyond 50,000 feet or about 15 kilometers above sea level at Mach 2, 2 times the speed of sound, this marvel of aviation was the product of bleeding-edge 1950s and 1960s technology. If you were to hop on a flight from New York to London today in 2021, it would take around 7 hours, more than double the time it took the Concorde. How was this achieved? Design and manufacturing teams from both the British Aircraft Corporation and French Sud Aviation collaborated on this faster-than-sound airliner. The Concorde was not only a pioneer of supersonic passenger travel, but was also the first airliner to use a fly-by-wire control system, being controlled by a computer in the 1970s. It was powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Snecma Olympus 593 engines. These were turbojet engines which utilized afterburners to propel the Concorde well above the speed of sound. To this day, it remains the only turbojet engine with afterburners used on a commercial passenger aircraft. What was it like? Traveling aboard Concorde was much like being in a small regional jet. With limited headroom and a narrow internal width of 8 feet 7 inches, that's 2.6 meters, its 4-abreast seating was cramped to say the least. But it wasn't the seating arrangement that was premium about Concorde. A ticket would set you back around $8,000 in the late 1990s. Adjusted for inflation, that would be about $13,000. High-priced luxury service was accessible to only the wealthiest of customers, with the occasional ticket giveaways for the lucky few. On board, you can expect a turbulent free flight, flying above severe weather systems. Passengers enjoyed first-class service overflowing with champagne. Naturally, it was the flight to take for the rich and famous. Why wasn't Concorde a success? The original cost estimation was 70 million British pounds, ballooning to an astonishing 1.3 billion British pounds after several delays ranging from technical challenges and political ham-fisting. In the dreams of both the United Kingdom and France, the Concorde would have flown to as many destinations as possible, but this would not be the case. Traveling at supersonic speeds came at a cost that isn't just monetary. Noise. Passenger airliners flying over homes isn't a strange occurrence. The low whirring sound of turbojet engines is something many of us are accustomed to. But the Concorde produced what's called a sonic boom. When an aircraft breaks a sound barrier, shockwaves are generated. As a consequence, tremendous amounts of sound energy produces a noise which is similar to a thunderclap. This caused alarm to those on ground level, with protests against the Concorde. The United States Federal Aviation Administration placed restrictions on supersonic flights over land, making considerations as early as 1969, and eventually finalizing regulation in 1973. Concorde flights were restricted to international ocean routes while traveling to the United States, blocked from one of the most lucrative markets at the time, domestic air travel throughout the States. Noise disturbance was not the only blow to Concorde's success. Fuel consumption. In 1973, a stock market crash coupled with an oil crisis saw the price of oil quadruple from $3 to $12 a barrel. The Concorde required copious amounts of fuel on takeoff and to maintain supersonic speeds. The widely used passenger jet of its era, the Boeing 707, averaged 33.3 passenger miles per gallon, in comparison to Concorde's 15.8, more than double. Perhaps a victim of poor timing, the Concorde also came up against arguably the most consequential passenger aircraft of its time, the Boeing 747, the world's first jumbo jet. All these factors led to cancellations from 16 airlines who'd previously reserved orders anywhere from 2 to 6 aircraft, leaving only Air France and British Overseas Airway Corporation, BOAC. What happened to the Concorde? Though the Concorde had operated for 27 years under less than stellar financial conditions, 2 catastrophic events would contribute to the grounding of the Concorde forever. Air France Flight 4590 took off from Charles de Gaulle Airport outside of Paris, bound for John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York City on July 25, 2000. A metallic strip had broken off from a Continental Airlines DC-10 on the same runway before the Concorde. This strip punctured a tire which sent pieces of rubber flying into the fuel tank on the underside of the aircraft, causing a fire. With one engine shut down and another failing, the Concorde crashed. This would lead to the tragic loss of 100 passengers and 9 crew members on board, as well as 4 on the ground. It would be almost a year before Concorde would fly again on July 17, 2001, with modifications made such as Kevlar-lined fuel tanks and burst-resistant tires. Air France and BOAC successor British Airways, the product of an airline merger of BOAC and 3 other airlines in 1974, announced on April 10, 2003 that the Concorde would be retired. This was following poor recovery from a sharp decline in passenger numbers since the crash of Flight 4590 in 2000 and the subsequent market slump following the September 11 attacks. The end of Concorde ultimately came down to, ironically, aging technology and financial woes. It was on the bleeding edge of technological advancement in the 20th century, becoming antiquated for the 21st century. It required 3 persons to fly, which included a flight engineer. Many other aircraft had switched to 2-persons operation. Its analog cockpit with dials, gauges, and bulbs became increasingly hard to maintain, and Airbus, the company which provided parts of the Concorde, decided it would no longer supply replacement parts in 2003. There has not been a supersonic passenger aircraft since, but the future of air travel isn't all that bleak. There seems to be a re-engagement with the luxury of faster-than-sound travel in the 2020s. An American company, Boom Supersonic, signed a purchase agreement with United Airlines for 15 of what they are calling Overture airliners. It's currently slated to fly passengers in 2029. Boom Supersonic has yet to demonstrate a flight-worthy supersonic aircraft, but they expect to test their XB-1 by the end of 2021 or early 2022. Do you think supersonic travel will make a comeback? Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more short breakdowns of historical objects and events, make sure to like and subscribe.